So we'll see who we get on the podcast today. I'm making some delicious gluten-free pancakes. We'll see what happens.
Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
So what would you give it on a number like scale 1 to 10?
Like a 10.
You would go 10.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Off the charts.
And
going
then
all the way.
it's going to be a 15 out of 10 for coming in the clutch.
All right. So I was going to go on a long run, and I got about 6.5 miles in, and I had 6.5 miles to go home. So it was the longest I have ever gone. I did not have enough pancakes that day, I don't think.
Oh, man. So the time I ran 10 miles, I went out and I ran a mile and a half to warm up. I came back into the house and told my sister, like, I'm going to run 10 miles someday. She says, it'll never happen. And so I turned right around, walked right back out the door, and I ran 8.5 more miles.
8.5 more miles, got it up to 10, right?
It hurt.
So is your sister younger than you, older than you?
She's younger than me by 3 years, yeah.
Okay, super. And what'd she say after that?
She wasn't as impressed as I was hoping.
Yeah, right. It was like, yeah, whatever.
I proved her wrong.
Sounds good. So now we know how to motivate Matt in a workout. Yeah, you can't do that. And Matt turns around, puts more weight on the bar. Oh, well, I guess you can.
For me, it was not necessarily the distance or feeling tired. It was just my joints started hurting. Just saw that impact.
Right. How far were we talking about around the bar?
10 miles, yeah.
10 miles.
Yeah, and then when I did it, so it was the Army 10 miler, so there's a whole boatload of people, and then you're just dodging people the whole time, so speeding up and slowing down.
We got a lot of oil here.
More than I was tired, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So it could have gone for a long time, but it's just like, this just hurts. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Prior to that though, I think you were telling us a couple of weeks ago, you were telling us that maybe you hadn't built up to that. It was kind of like a awakening or something like that. Cause you were doing track and field before, or tracking cross country. Mm-hmm. Right. So you were used to the miles back then, but then you kind of turned it around and then you were like, okay, so now I'm going to go do this 10 miler maybe.
Yeah. And training up, I was probably the farthest I probably did ahead of time was maybe 4 or 5. So in hindsight, maybe I should have done a couple of 6s or 7s or whatever. So big difference between 2 or 3 and then 10 miles.
Yeah, absolutely. So Matt, so do you incorporate running and stuff like that in your training, or is it, like, where does that fit in what you do? Because I mean, like when you tell a story about that, you ran 1.5 miles and then your sister's like, you can't do 10 miles. She must have some prior understanding that you just don't like running.
So actually I do like running, but I never ran that far because I always just ran to stay fit. And so really I've worked out the same way that the people I work out with work out. So usually I run whenever I'm by myself on a trip in a hotel, there's no gym. And so I'll just go run to get a workout in.
Cool.
So here I haven't really gone and run more than 1.5 miles in the past, since October, because I've been coming here and working out. Unless it was incorporated into a workout.
So switching gears a little bit, what do you guys do during the week as far as your daily nutrition, and does nutrition fit into your training at all, or is it, how do you think about that?
Absolutely. It does fit into it. So I naturally eat around 1,800 calories a day comfortably, but I burn a lot more than that working out here.
Okay.
And so I found that I was not gaining any weight and I was exhausted during the workouts.
Oh, wow.
Until I realized I should be eating over 3,000 a day to keep up with the workload. So I feel a little full throughout the day, but having that extra calorie intake helps me in the workout.
Right. So how many calories are you adding over that 1,800, you think?
I'm around the 3,000 calories a day mark.
3,000.
Yeah.
So that's like a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a lot more, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone from 1,800 to 3,000.
So really I've added 2 meals to my day.
Yeah.
Like snacks or meals.
Right.
And that's what's helped me get to that point.
Fantastic. Dan, where do you add on that? Is that?
So I'll be honest, I have no idea how much I eat per day, like calorie wise, which is maybe part of the problem, but I hate to, it sounds like an excuse, but during my day, so I'm kind of,
Yeah, you're locked
confined
in.
to my workspace,
Right.
so it's hard for me to, I have to bring what I can. So I bring I try to bring like a good sandwich or things like that, and I have like nuts or pretzels or whatever throughout the day. I do usually have a pretty good breakfast and a pretty good dinner as well. It's just that, during the week, during the course of the workday, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for me to probably get in what I need. And then I can tell when maybe I haven't eaten as much and I come in here, I just kind of feel a little bit more sluggish, or I don't really quite have the energy. So I definitely can tell on those days for sure.
But you actually have on board about 2,800 calories. Now, working with folks who are doing the CrossFit workouts, and Matt, you started bringing up this point, so it's really super cool. If you eat, let's say 1,800, let's say Matt eats his normal 1,800 calories because that's what he's comfortable with. He comes in, he does a high intensity workout. He goes back home. Tuesday, he comes in, he's eating another 1,800 calories. He does another high intensity workout, and he continues doing that. At some point, what's going to happen is that the gas tank's pretty much going to be empty. Depending on how much rest and recovery you've had, the amount of stored muscle glycogen you have is going to become less and less each time. So you can think of it almost like having that gas tank, and that gas tank coming in and having maybe a quarter tank, and you're trying to perform like you were before, but you don't really have as much stored energy. And so you're going to hit that wall a lot sooner in the workout. It's just not going to feel good. So having some sense of how much you think you might need to eat each day, and then accounting for that, like your workouts, can help you to perform better over time. We recognized that when we were working with some folks who were seeing just that happening later on in the week and just running out of steam. But anyway, it sounds like you guys had a pretty good sense of that anyway. So Matt, you're already ahead of the game. That 3,000 calories. Let me ask you about goals a little bit, right? Because if somebody had a weight loss goal, and they decide they're going to double the number of calories they're eating, or almost double, 60, 80% more, they're probably not going to be doing weight loss as much as maybe maintenance, because they're eating as much as they're burning and that kind of thing. So they're pretty much going to maintain. Right. You weren't in that situation though. So tell us a little bit more about, your thinking on that and what you think's happening with that.
So I view food as fuel. And so whatever I feel like my goals are, I need to be able to provide my body. Just like we were talking about how you have those stores in your body. The fuel tank's a good analogy. Just trying to provide my body not only the fuel to work out, but then the nutrients to build up after the workout.
I think I made that pancake a little crispy. Dan's like, what the hell's going on here?
We'll try it out.
See, Matt goes right for it. Right. It's like hot off of the grill. Yeah, so definitely looking at fuels of food as a fuel. Mm-hmm. Have you looked into like combinations of what does fat do for you, protein and carbohydrates, and how you balance those?
Are you talking about macronutrients?
Yeah, right.
I'm starting to get into that to understand it a little bit better, but yeah, trying to balance them and see how they work.
Super. Yeah.
Just diving into that.
And Dan's eating his pretzels sitting behind the desk.
Yeah, well, which I probably should start, doing some research on it, but I have no knowledge of any of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's actually go back to like, you have a sense, like, is it working for you anyway? I mean, it might be just working.
Probably
fine.
not, because my goal, I would probably say my goal is to weight gain. And I hover day to day, probably right around the same weight. So, in that sense, no, it's probably not working. Because again, I'm not getting to where I want to be. Yeah.
So, just going back to Matt for a second, like what you did to go from 1,800 to 1,200 calories, you essentially added two small meals during the day, right? On what you were eating. Right. So, and that bumped up the number of calories. That's something that, you could try, right? I mean, just pack a little bit more, have those snacks. So, to have a little bit more and try it for 2 weeks and see how you feel, right? Kind of getting back to the macronutrients, obviously it would be pretty easy to add 1,200 calories by eating 3 or 4 donuts. But when Matt talks about macronutrients here, I don't think he's talking about donuts. So what are you doing when you think of like the macronutrients? Matt, what are you thinking of as carbs, protein, and fat? Where do you go? I mean, you're saying you're just starting to dabble in it a little bit. Right. So where are you at on that?
So for my meal prepping, I'm still trying to calculate what each meal that I make provides to me, but I'm about a third each, so 30% protein, 30% carb, 30% carbohydrates.
And 10%.
And 10%
Magic.
Flex.
Okay, right? Super. I was
so 33.3% protein.
Okay, so like keeping it nice and even across it.
Well, let me ask.
Thought it could be something else.
When you did that increase, how did you, because I don't know how to say it, but how did you find that balance between, okay, yeah, you said you feel a little bit more full during the day, but how, like, as opposed to, like, sometimes I know when I feel full where I'll just feel like, ugh. Like, is it that kind of a feeling or like?
Not really. It also depends when. So I'm learning that, or at least I've read that your metabolism's faster in the morning than it is in the afternoon. Okay. And so I'll eat more calories during the morning. And then by the end of my work day, I've eaten most of my calories, at which point I come to the gym, work out. And then after the gym, I'll do like a filler, but not very big meal.
There's also some tips on that too. Increasing the fat content can add calories without adding bulk. Right. So a little bit of almond butter or some almonds and things like that is a good way to increase that overall calories without, eating 10 cups of broccoli or something like that. Also, pro tip on like trimming your macros throughout the day. So yeah, absolutely. We're more active during the day. So naturally our metabolism tends to be a little higher. So that's when we could take on some of the like berries and things like that, the complex carbohydrates, the starches and those kinds of things. Later on in the day, usually the activity level's dropping off. We're trying to get ready for bed, that kind of thing. And so it's winding down. So you could still have a full meal, but adding in, making sure you're getting those non-starchy veggies like the broccoli, green beans, asparagus, and stuff like that later on in the day can help us to still get the fiber and that kind of thing we need, still get the carbohydrates, but not overloaded on the sweet stuff. Right. That isn't going to do us any good. The body's just going to say, I don't know what to do with this. We're not even active. Metabolism dropping off, getting ready for bed. Yep. Super. So let's go a different direction other than nutrition because we've got the pancakes going here, which is a little bit of are we being nutritious or not? I don't know, but just making different choices here. We're putting berries on there, syrup, butter, all that great stuff. So Dan, so in today's workout, what were the movements we had?
So we had the power snatch, we had the row, and we had the rope climb.
All righty. So you were talking a little bit about the rope climb earlier. Is that something that you had done before?
I probably had very minimal experience with it before I started coming to the gym here. I've done some before. And then I'm still working on the movement because I tend to just use my arms mostly as opposed to using the, when you hook your feet to use that as a driving force. So, I'm still kind of learning the technique there.
Okay, super. And what went well in the workout today for you?
So for me overall, it was just the push. I like the team workouts, because you can kind of hit that wall, but the teammates, let me get that one more. Let me get this couple extra calories. Get that little extra push before I'm really like falling off the. Who'd
you have on the team today? You had teams of 3.
We did. So Matt was on the team and Jeremy was on the team as well.
I completely messed up that pancake. But
it tastes the same.
Maybe this one's for me.
Right.
So you had Jeremy, you had Matt, and was Helena also on the team, like doing shadowing? So you could do a 4-person team and then 2 people are working at the same time. Mm-hmm. So you had the power snatches, the rope climb, and then the rowing. Was there another movement in there? No, that was it, right? And then you guys were building up the weight and decreasing repetitions as you got closer. Then right in the middle, that was the rope climbs, and then you climb back down that ladder. You guys were given 30 minutes in the workout today. Was it 30?
It was 30.
Okay, great. How far did you were you able to get everything done, or what was the intent on that?
We got to the last set of 75. We did what, 67?
67, yeah.
67 snatches. After
nice.
that, we would have had to have done 75 calories on the rower.
Okay, super. So, do you guys feel that you paced it right? Anything that you would do differently in the workout next time?
I think we had a great pace, I thought. The only difference is I think it's just volume that we're able to do, because transitioning, switching in and out of workouts weight takes time. So if I'm able to do more in my set, then we spend less time transitioning.
So, I got a good question for you guys. In CrossFit, we tend to do the lighter weights, more repetitions, right? So I know, like, a lot of times we think of building strength as having a heavier barbell, fewer repetitions and things like that. Oftentimes, folks will have a goal of either weight loss or adding weight and adding muscle mass. So does CrossFit with higher repetitions, lighter weight, promote strength, or what's going on there? I mean, am I going to get bigger? Am I going to get smaller? What's happening?
I think you can absolutely gain muscle mass in CrossFit. I think it's all about what you put into it. I read somewhere that your body's a mirror image of your lifestyle.
Okay, you are what you eat.
You are what you eat.
Or you are what you do, right?
So anybody can come here and do a CrossFit workout, depending what your goals are. Some people may scale it down because that's comfortable and that's what their goals are. If you scale up and do the weight, or just do the extra reps, I think it'll be reflected in your physique.
Yeah, cool. Dan, what do you think? What do you believe?
So for me, even though weight-wise I've probably stayed around the same, I know I look different. My body shape has changed since the time I started here.
Oh, cool.
And
So how long have you been doing CrossFit?
probably since November.
Okay, so we're just around the corner, like November, December, January, February, March.
4 or 5 months-ish, roughly.
Yeah.
And then I know I'm stronger. The weights that I was doing when I first started, as opposed to what I can do now. And same with the repetition, same with the speed. I can definitely see the progression that I've made.
Yeah, that's true. That is awesome. That is really cool. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of neat. It always baffles me, and it kind of hit me hard once when we had 2 teens in the summer, and I probably told this story on the podcast before. If I did that, you guys can hear it again. But so basically, we had 2 teens, Josh and Eden, and they worked with us over the summer, and they both played baseball. And Josh was like, "Hey, coach, what protein supplement do I need to eat in order to get bigger? I want to build muscle." And I'm like, "Well, don't worry about the supplements. Let's just eat meat and potatoes." And they would come in every week and they'd be doing their CrossFit workouts all summer long. Aiden had the opposite thing. He said, "I want to get faster. I know I need to kind of trim up a little bit and get faster and stuff like that." They both came and I said, "Well, okay, so go through your cabinets, look to see what might have added sugar, kind of take that out and stuff like that." And he started trying to convince his family to go sugar-free, stuff like that over the summer. So they both came in and they both did the same CrossFit workouts all summer long. And by the end of it, Josh was definitely stronger and Aiden was definitely faster. And I think it was always kind of striking to me to be able to see, folks, just like Matt is kind of saying, it's kind of like you are what you repeatedly do, right? So if you come in and you train and do your best, then those things that you want to improve will improve. In fact, intensity is the shortcut to those results, regardless of what those results are. And, we're pushing a little bit more, challenging ourselves. And for example, in the power snatches that we did today, if we didn't have good shoulder stability and mobility, that would be the weak link in the chain that would have to get improved. We can't do 75 repetitions of that movement without getting stronger, right? And if we don't have the shoulder stability and the overall body awareness and coordination and agility, then strength then becomes a liability because we're strong in one place, but we're not strong overall in the system. So that way, just CrossFit and just kind of subjecting ourselves to a lot of these different functional movements over time really kind of move the needle in the right direction, regardless of what those results are that we're trying to pursue. And then just kind of tying everything together, the nutrition part of it, being able to have a strategy where we can look at where we're starting from and then make those gradual improvements on the nutrition, we can make sure that we have a full tank of gas when we come in to train, and that we can try to introduce things gradually over time, trying things out a week or two and seeing what impact they have. And a lot of times it's just some simple changes. It's not like we're doing things right or wrong. It's just finding ways that are going to work better for us as individuals. So, Dan, I do have a question for you. Going back to when you were doing your cross country, right? Definitely had that routine going on. What kinds of things were you doing as far as nutrition at that time? You were obviously, how old were you at that point?
I was high school. It was my junior.
Yeah, so you could probably have eaten anything and done anything you wanted, right?
Right.
So did you find that nutrition was a part of it, or just kind of reaching back?
No, I like you say, that young, I kind of just felt, almost like invincible. I can eat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever I want. I put back in those days probably zero thought into it. And as a result, I probably paid the price. Can't say school lunch was probably the best thing out there back then, but kind of made do with what resources I had.
So you didn't, certainly we weren't counting calories. You weren't looking at macros. You were eating when you were hungry, and you were so active that it really, you kind of naturally were able to find that way. And, like when Matt says, I was comfortable eating, 1,800 calories a day, our body's really good at finding that balance and stuff like that. So it's not like we ever are doing anything wrong. It's just like looking at, what it is. Body's pretty good at that. And then we can kind of supercharge things a little bit and just kind of look at where's the opportunity for improving overall performance and stuff like that. And just being a little more mindful, stuff like that can, maybe adding in a little more healthy snacks and things like that. And then monitoring how you're feeling throughout the week can give us a way to tweak that a little bit. Matt, do you want to add anything?
About nutrition?
About anything you want.
About anything I want. I think you're right that your body finds a balance. The more that I work out, the bigger my appetite is. And then I believe that my body will find a balance depending on what my input output is.
Nice.
And then, and just trying to prepare for that ahead of time. So I do meal prepping on Sundays.
Okay, super.
For the week. And then it's all made, pre-portioned. I take a whole backpack to work with just food in it because it's just to be prepared.
Yeah, man. That is good. It's something to strive for. I mean, like my day is, I have a home office, so the kitchen's just not very far away. So like I'm not doing as much prep, but I think that could be an opportunity to really prepare during the week regardless, so that I would be more prepared to have the kinds of things that I need. That's super.
Right. And understanding where my shortfalls are. So I think that the battle with nutrition is won in the grocery store and not at home, right? So if I don't buy it, I can't eat it, So only go to the grocery store after I've already eaten something, so that I'm not like, oh my goodness, little Debbie's,
Yeah, definitely.
That was exactly what I was thinking too.
Right.
I know if I go to the shop right after I work out, like I'm gonna really want to buy some Reese's cups or something like that. Or if I go to
going for Reese's cups.
Yeah, if I go to the grocery store if I'm there, I'm probably gonna make some poor grocery store choices. So yeah, right when you said that, I was thinking the same thing.
Wow, that is cool. Yeah. If you don't buy it, you don't eat it, right? Yeah. Right. I know we at home a number of years ago, and the whole journey was just, okay, we're going to go through the pantry. We're going to go and we're just going to eliminate all the foods that we really shouldn't be eating. So we put it in boxes and we took it down in the basement, figuring that if we put it down in the basement, there was no way we were going to go down there to get the graham crackers, the Oreo cookies, all the different things that we, the bags of sugar we had. I mean, we found an amazing amount of everything in our cabinets. So that's one way to just kind of remove it from the environment as best you can. And then it was like, wait a minute, I'm starting to buy Pop-Tarts. I mean, it's like, so it's kind of like if you gotta really go to where you're shopping and just not put it in the cart. If you don't put it in the cart, then you're not going to take it home. You're not going to end up eating it. And then having those recipes and things like that your go-to recipes, you can, stock up on those things obviously and fuel better that way. So excellent ideas you guys got. I'm loving it.
And everybody's different. So I can eat the same thing every day and I'm fine. It doesn't bother me at all. But my wife, she can't stand eating the same thing every day.
It's got to be different.
So her meal prepping is a lot more complex than mine is.
Okay, sounds good. Dan, could you eat the same thing every day?
Probably not. So I probably cook twice a week. I usually do Sundays as well, but then usually Wednesday as well.
Okay, good. What's your go-to as far as like meal prep? You talked a little bit about that. You said HelloFresh or
I do
one of those
that.
guys.
Yeah, I do subscribe to that. So I try to get a lot of the chicken products, and then with the vegetables as well, and potato, as opposed to again you could pick hamburger,
Right.
The hamburgers for all of their meals as well. So I try to stay away from those. Try to stick more to the chicken. They got like some fish choice.
Yeah, lean meats and stuff like that. Yeah, load up on those veggies.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, you got anything else you want to add? All right, guys. Thanks so much for coming up. And,
Thanks. The pancakes.
Yes.
were
Oh, yeah. Super. And I really don't
Great
think I
touch.
burned very many of them, which the longer we went on the podcast, the longer I was letting them sit in the pan. And I think this thing just gave up on me.
Just
so
creating a variety. That's
yeah, absolute variety. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.